Bob, you're on.
Finally.
So today is Friday the 25th of February, and we are here at the Phoenix International UFO Congress, and it's our great pleasure once again to be meeting with our old friend Bob Dean. And I have this feeling that he may be an older friend than just 2 or 3 years. Who knows? And I'm delighted to have this opportunity to share a vintage-style Camelot interview in Bob's presence. And Bob, there's something very remarkable happening here, that the three of us are together in the spirit of
It's a nice reunion.
A reunited family. And I'm genuinely delighted to be here. So I'm Bill Ryan from Project Avalon.
And I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and we are also both from Project Camelot. An interesting dichotomy.
Things get pretty complicated, you know.
No doubt about it. So, Bob, the reason we're here with you today is because you made some comments on the stage that I want to challenge you on, and I'd also like you to talk a little bit more about a few other topics, okay? And I think that all the time that we've interviewed you, you always keep a few cards hidden. And I would love for you to start to reveal some of those things. And I realize that, you know, you put yourself in danger and other people in danger when you do reveal too much. And so with that in mind, I assume you're going to be as careful as you ever are. I would love you to disclose as much as you can, because who knows how many more opportunities we're going to have to really get you on camera, and especially in this arrangement with the two of us here, just like old times.
Well, you know, I have this feeling sometimes that Bob's going to outlive us both, actually.
I know, he looks fabulous, so this, you know, it should be against the law to look so wonderful. At, what, 82? Are you 80?
I'll be 82 next week.
Lovely.
All right.
2nd of March.
Fabulous.
Happy birthday, Bob.
And as I said in my speech yesterday, every time I get out of bed, I'm in a state of shock that I'm still here. But I am still here because apparently I've not completed what I came to do.
Apparently not. Well, you're needed. That's for sure.
What do you feel you are here to do, Bob? Something which I said to you just the other day is that the information that you share isn't as important as the inspiration that you provide. And I wondered what you felt your job really was.
It took me a long time to reach the conclusion of why I really was here. I don't think there's a person on the planet that doesn't at some point in their lives ask themselves, who the hell am I? Why am I here? What's the purpose of life? What's it all about? Alfie, as the saying goes. It took me a long time to come to terms with why I was here. I shared with you some time back about the fact that I'd had a number of past life hypnotic regressions. And that opened a can of worms for me. But it also indicated to some degree why I really had come this time. Because like everyone else, I've been here many times. And as both of you know, I'm sure that the human spirit is infinite, immortal. We incarnate here, we come and go to school. We learn a few lessons, contribute in a small way, in each in our every way. But not many people ever take the time to really sit down and look deeply into themselves. As Yogananda said, self-realization, knowing who and what is living inside this shell that we call a human body. And like most humans, I went through a big chunk of my life, as I said, 3 different careers. And only in the last 10 to 15 years have I really begun to deeply look into myself and come to terms with myself. And as the Hindus say, the self is the immortal being that lives temporarily in this shell. And I had some interesting conversations with myself. Hey, see here, self, who the hell are you? Who am I? Why am I here? And self replied, You were an immortal being and you came to do a job. Now, damn it, well, get on with it. Do what you came to do. And only in this third career, as it were, where I've been traveling the world speaking publicly at major conferences, Barcelona, Madrid, Mexico City, Atlanta, everywhere. The response that I've been getting from people at those conferences, the response I got from people after giving you guys, 3 previous interviews, has literally been overwhelming. Shocked me, really did shock me. And it finally dawned on me that when people come up, give me hugs and kisses, touch me, and tell me that the things that I have said meant so much to them, that apparently my words had triggered something within them that brought something out from inside of themselves. Did it really begin at that point where I began to grasp what my mission had been here? And it's simply this. I'm not a great scholar. I'm not a great philosopher. I'm not a great much of anything. But when I speak to people publicly, here, there, and everywhere, apparently I touch a nerve somehow. And it's almost electric. It's kind of mysterious. And they come up and grab me and hold on to me and tell me what I had to say meant so much to them. And I say to them, I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. I've never told anybody anything that you don't know within yourself. I touch them. Remember the old Hindu story where the holy man, the guru, goes up and knocks a person in right between the eyes, and then all of a sudden they wake up? Well, I found that apparently I've been doing a little bit of that. Because I've been reminding people who they are, what they are. And I remind them that you're not just the human body that you see in the mirror. You're an immortal being. You've lived forever. God knows how many eons of time we've been at this. And you're going to continue to live forever. That you are an infinite soul, a spark of divinity. And saying that to people apparently triggers something in them, where they really begin to look into themselves. And as I say, I've not told you anything that you didn't already know. And as my old friend from Galilee said, the kingdom of God is within you. And that does cause a bit of a spark of recognition in people.
Well, Bob, with that in mind, when you were on stage yesterday, you said that people out there, and you didn't mean the audience you were talking to, but you said they couldn't handle the truth.
The masses.
Yes. And I actually want to take issue with that because
well, we've
I
taken
don't
issue
see
with
it.
that before.
Yes.
You are convinced that everybody's ready.
No, it's not so much that they're ready. It's that
They
they
can
have a
deal
right
with
to
it.
know.
Well, having the right
And
to know.
judging for them is just
Well.
what the Illuminati have always done. They have decided what we're allowed to know and what we're not allowed to know. And it's not up to them. It's not up to you. And it's not up to anyone else to determine who is ready to know and who isn't. It's up to them to know.
I'm not determining for anybody who's ready.
I know. But what I'm saying is, you are a leader. Okay? And for you to go on stage and say that they're not ready is not encouraging the people and acknowledging the people out there, the young people especially, who actually out there in the masses don't need to go to a UFO conference in order to prove that they're not only ready, but they've been on that page for a very long time. That's why these sci-fi movies are flocked to by the masses around the world. That's why these shows are watched, because not only do they watch them out of curiosity, but they watch them because they remember. Some of them come in at this time. They're
They
coming
know.
in. Yes, they're
They know
coming
in
in
their
with
heart.
total recall.
Yeah.
So all I wanted to say to you is that I believe that there are a lot more ready for the real truth than people in the inside, whether it be on the inside from this sector or far in deep in black projects, are willing to give them credit for.
Over the last 20 years, I've noticed a change in human nature. There has been definitely an expansion of consciousness in masses of people all over the planet. And I'm gratified by that. I'm encouraged by that. And I've never determined for anyone whether they were not ready or not. And when I made my comment yesterday, I told you that there are a lot of people here who are ready, but there are many who are not. And I used the analogy of Billy Dew, the native boy from New Guinea. When he was exposed to realities that he had never been prepared to be exposed to, it literally devastated him psychically to the point that the kid died.
I understand.
He literally starved to death. He died from, dehydration in a jungle that was filled with water and fruit and
But
nuts.
Bob, they've been preparing us, and we've been preparing them because we've been working on the same thing. Disclosure has been happening nonstop now for almost 20
Disclosure
years.
has been underway, and it's working.
Yes,
And this is part of it.
exactly.
But it's a
So
very slow process.
it may or may not be. In other words, it might have been slow for you, and you were one of the fast ones back then because you got access to things that other people to this day don't know about.
If you heard my remarks yesterday, I damn near died. The truth damn near killed me. I was not prepared for it.
I understand.
And I've
We're
seen
in
a lot of the
different
world,
time.
and I'm looking at the world from 82 years, and you're just a chicken. You're looking at the world, what? I won't even get
I
into
know.
it.
But
The point
thing
I'm making is I understand what you're saying, but I still stand by my point that the masses are not ready, because every time I go out somewhere to speak, I still run into a few open, old, closed minds, and, fundamentalists of any number of faiths who are ready to fight, and they're ready to, get into...
Let me just back up a fraction here, because the people watching this video don't know the Billy Dew story. And I wonder if I can summarize it,
I think
encapsulate...
that it's been out there.
I had never heard it before yesterday.
Oh, I
And so there are a lot of other people who hadn't.
Well,
too.
the Billy Dew story was included in the Brookings study.
Yes. The theme here, it's a true story of a young native boy in Papua New Guinea called Billy Dew, and everybody loved him, and they thought there's a special reward for the fact that he was a lovely young guy. They would show him what the real world, the civilized world, the so-called Western world was like. And they took him on a plane, and they took him to Brisbane, Australia, and they took him to see restaurants and cars and supermarkets and shopping malls and television and movie theaters and all of this kind of stuff, and he couldn't handle it. And this is the story that Bob told in his presentation yesterday. My question for you, Bob, is it possible that that could have been done, could have been accomplished in a kinder, more supportive way that would have enabled Billy Dew to handle the truth? Or was he just dropped in it and then left to his own devices without any support?
You see, they didn't really intend to do what they did. And you're right, if Billy Dew had been prepared, he might have been able to survive it. Because the shock of the world that he came from, the psychic shock of seeing the other world out there, was more than he was prepared for. The psychic shock, the spiritual shock to that kid, literally killed him. Yes, he could have been prepared, but they didn't understand that at that mission school in Papua. Their intentions were good. They loved the kid, and they thought they were doing him a favor. And what they ended up doing was murdering him, literally.
Yeah. It was naive. It was really naive. Well-intentioned.
Oh, very. And as I said, the one that Billy Dew referred to as Good Lady,
Yes.
her light didn't burn quite as bright after that event because she realized what they had done.
Yeah. But is it possible, using that as a metaphor, this is a story that was built into the Brookings report, and we have to assume that somewhere there are a lot of very smart people, some of whom are well-intentioned, who are taking that into account and planning disclosure with that in mind. Do you believe that it's possible that it could be accomplished well?
Yes, it's being accomplished as we speak.
Right.
As you remember, I went on to tell you that a blunt announcement is not what the people are ready for.
Yeah.
But they are enduring what I call an ongoing disclosure, a process that's been underway for over 20 years now, maybe longer. where they are being prepared through what I call subliminal education, through movies, books, novels, magazines, you know, even games.
To say nothing of Project Camelot and Bob Dean.
Well, Project Camelot, honey, as I said, you guys have had an impact on the world that I don't even today really think you two grasp. Your impact has been overwhelming.
Well, let me tell you the letters we get. We get letters, we get people coming up to us saying we changed their lives.
Exactly.
Saying they started from zero and that we opened this for them and they basically are growing in leaps and bounds, and they come to us and thank us. Okay, this is the keynote, is that they thank us for that. And I have to say that we cannot look at Billy Dew, if that's his name, as just a physical body. You talked about eternal beings. This is a soul who came to the planet in a certain state, on a certain level of awareness. Now, prior to Billy Dew being in Papua New Guinea, he could have been any number of other places, and he was probably a star to begin with.
Yeah.
And there's also the aspect that this kind of thing could have been targeted to maybe the person that was least prepared in that group of people that he was among to handle these kinds of
You see,
things.
I think Margaret Mead, who I believe was the one who delivered the story of Billy
Who
Dew.
was an Illuminati, yes.
Yeah, she was an incredibly bright lady, and she had had years and years of experience working with primitive societies. And I think she was the one responsible for getting that into the study.
Yes.
And yes, Billy Dew could have been prepared.
And can we hear about the people that this changed in a brilliant and wonderful way, whose lives were saved because of it? Because I had a young woman come to me just about a half hour ago, and she's from Puerto Rico. And she said, I have a child, and he is a crystal child, and you saved my child's life. That's what she said.
Well,
to me.
I'm not surprised.
And she said, because you interviewed, in this case, it was Jessica Schaub. Regardless of what you think about Jessica's information, and she was young and inexperienced at the time I interviewed her, but there are children out there who saw the mirror of themselves in her, in her awareness and her willingness to embrace this cosmos of which we are a part. And so what I would submit to you is, here we are in 2011, that human consciousness is almost like an animal that's growing as a unity in leaps and bounds, okay, at this time. And you know that we have incredible energies coming into the earth facilitating this growth at this time, unlike any other time in history. And there are many scientists, people like Paul Laviolette, who can substantiate that scientifically for the people that are listening. But the point is that we can't go back to the Brookings report because it's no longer applicable.
Well,
if
it's
it
still,
ever was.
it is still national policy,
Yes.
whether you like it or
But
not.
those are incredibly conservative old men who actually need to be booted out of office. And they're
Whether
not
you
running
think they should be
anything.
booted, I agree with you that there are hundreds of thousands of them who should be booted out of office. I've known hundreds of them in my own time. Now, Carrie, I don't disagree with you on what you're saying.
That's all.
Well, the only disagreement we may have is the timing.
Absolutely. Have you noticed the people taking their revolution into their own hands lately?
Of course.
Okay, these people
That's part
are
of an
not
expansion.
just ready.
That's part of an
change the
expansion of
world.
mass consciousness.
Exactly.
That was inevitable.
Absolutely.
And some of the philosophers have been predicting that for years and years. And let me tell you something else. You ain't seen nothing yet.
And
I believe you.
Just hold on.
I believe you.
The next 10 years, I hope the hell I'm not here. I want to go home, really. I'm tired. But the next 10 years are going to confront you with things you wouldn't have dreamed before.
Absolutely. Now, Rich Dolan just did a wonderful speech.
He did. He always does.
Yes, he does. And he talked about the fact that there is a almost separate society out there.
There is.
You could even call them a rogue, secret military group who has created a whole society that is based on technology that is not in the public domain, that is based on concepts robotics, nanotechnology,
genetic
they
manipulation.
Absolutely, and they have money galore that they've basically stolen, secreted, taken from drug money, and supported these black projects that we at Project Camelot have been pursuing and interviewing people about.
Projects
for
the
5 years
American
now.
people have been financing for years
Absolutely.
without even knowing it.
So the point I'm trying to make here is that if you look at the earth and you look at humanity, we have two groups. We have a rogue group that is living, maybe we even had a witness that said 10,000 years ahead of this group. So you've got the masses of humanity here, and you've got this rogue group that's flying interluminally. Is that superluminal? Superluminally, right?
Right.
Outside our solar system.
Hyperluminal, whatever you wish to call it.
Solar system, etc. They've got bases on Mars and the Moon. You're talking about craft outside the rings of Saturn, which in your presentation, which is fascinating, and I'd love you to address some of that. But the fact of the matter is that we have two groups, and they're hugely divided,
Mm-hmm.
and that division is to the detriment, very, very seriously, of the masses. You
Of
see.
course.
And so it's bridging the gap that we're all about as a world at this time, in my view. Okay, that's what revealing the secrecy is. It's all about taking that river of division and bringing those two sides together. And you're one of the main people at the forefront, the avant-garde, along with Camelot and many other people that we know and respect, to bring those two groups together, to fill in and to reveal that place in between.
She makes a good argument, doesn't she?
Do you believe that there are enough white hats behind the black curtain to really be able to make a difference now that couldn't have been made 10 years ago?
Yes.
Right, that's an important thing to say. Some of those will be watching this video because they want to know what you're saying. They want to know what we're saying. What would you say to them? Because you can talk to them personally right now.
Listen, I've met some of them, and they have told me that they support entirely what I've been doing. And I shared this with you before, that at one point, some years back, certain individuals, the black hats, put out a contract on me because I had gone from being a nuisance to being a threat. And they literally thought they could eliminate me. But fortunately, I must have had good friends in high places, and at that time I didn't realize what high places my good friends were in, you know. And the word went out to leave me the hell alone. And here I am, at 82, still alive and ornery and kicking. God, I'm getting tired of being here. But the point I'm making is, even the white hats and even the black hats have made some progress along the way. And they've expanded their consciousness quite a bit.
Yes, no one's immune from this process. That's right.
And so, you know, I basically am very hopeful about the future. The human race, the human species, it has a tomorrow. And I feel that's important to share with people. You know, women with young kids. Will my little child grow up? What kind of a world will my kid grow up in? And I try to reassure them that your kid has a future and that tomorrow is going to be much brighter than yesterday. And some of the white hats and some of the black hats all understand this thing, which is why I'm allowed to continue to focus and travel and do this and that. And I actually have been given encouragement from some of the powers that be. I've been encouraged by some of the guys with all the money.
Okay, well, with that in mind, Bob, now that you're all warmed up, what is it you haven't told us?
Oh, my God. Can't you keep her under control?
Nope, no chance.
Carrie, a year ago at Laughlin, I gave you an interview where I thought I would shock the hell out of you. And apparently it didn't. And I told you that I had had a personal relationship with non-human intelligence since I was about 2.5 years old. And actually that relationship perhaps went back before I was even born. And I
So
thought,
have we.
well, I know you have, and everybody has had a relationship.
Lots.
The point is that half the people don't even begin to, they don't want to know the answer to that. And when it all began to dawn on me, the implications of it were pretty overpowering. But I gave you that interview and I thought, well, this will be the end. You know, nobody's going to pay a word of attention to me after this. They'll think the old coot's gone over the edge. He's lost it. And I thought, well, I can go home and I can smoke my big stogies and drink my whiskey and die peacefully. Well, it worked out just the opposite. I'm more in demand now than I've ever dreamed of being. Yesterday I accepted an invitation to speak at a MUFON conference in Philadelphia in October. And I gave her I said, look, I'm going to tell you honestly, if I'm still on the planet in October, I'll be delighted to come. But I'm not making any plans really that far ahead, you know. I can't buy an insurance policy at my age, you see. But I'm hopeful, honey. I feel very hopeful about everything.
I'm sure you're hopeful, but what is it you haven't told us? Because I believe, look, we've got time travel. There's issues with that. We've got travel through jump rooms to Mars and so on. I'm sure you've been exposed to some of that. You did share a little bit of that with me on my last interview with you. But I believe that was the tip of the iceberg. And I don't know how far you've gone down the rabbit hole, but I imagine it's a lot farther than you've revealed. And
I feel sympathetic with Alice because, yes, I've been down the rabbit hole.
Okay. And you feel, I know you're a very conscientious and loving individual, and I know that there's some things you want to reveal and some you don't because you want to protect people. And I don't think you have a whole lot to protect in terms of yourself at the moment because, as you said, you're protected. And we have also been threatened in the last year and a half, each of us in different ways, our lives, as a result of what we've done. But that just tells you that you're on the right track, and as far as I can tell.
Well, for time to time, I felt like the guy on the street with the raincoat who pulls it back, exposes himself, and then somebody comes along, they grab him and haul him away to the rubber room, as it were. I felt that way for quite a while. And yes, there are many things that I have not shared with you.
How about this? Wendell Stevens passed on recently, and he was a very good friend of yours.
I knew Wendell for 35 years.
Okay. And you told me that Wendell said some last words to you. Would you
Well,
share
Wendell
that?
and I had shared a lot before he got really sick, became ill. I had encouraged him for a long time to admit publicly that he himself had had personal relationship with some of them. And he said, Bob, I can't do that. He said, every ounce of credibility that I've had over the years will go down the tube if I say that. And I understood what he tried to say. He was getting older and he didn't need any bumps in his life before he departed. He was feeling bad and he felt, he knew he was leaving. And he says, I don't need any of that heartbreak and that upset stomach. I've told what I've learned, I've told what I've seen, I've shared the photos, I've spoken at conferences. He literally created this World Conference in 1991.
The UFO Congress.
And I had the privilege and honor of assisting him in putting that together in 1991. And as I've told you before, that's when I really came out of the closet and began to violate my national security oath. I wanted him to hold on and be here for the 20th anniversary. But he went home in September. And I loved him dearly, and I love him still because I know he's alive and well. There is no death. And when you come to terms with that, it's kind of a shock. The people who buy tombstones and buy the little plots in the cemeteries and all that. And I say to them, you guys don't understand. Because once the spirit leaves, that's nothing but a husk. Burn it up, sprinkle the ashes, and go on. Imagine how much real estate could be saved if we did away with cemeteries. Anyhow, I'm shaking up some people, I'm sure. There are traditionalists out there who will hear this and think, he's out of his damn mind. But yes, there are things I haven't told you, and there are probably things that I cannot tell you. I think I told you in that interview.
What would happen if you did, Bob?
Didn't I share with you that they had taken me away for 6 weeks? And that they brought me back 5 minutes after they took me?
Okay, I would love you to do that, but I would also like you to say the last words that Wendell told you, because he said some very specific words about what's going on here on the planet.
So he told me that from what he'd learned, that we were in for some difficult times.
But beyond that?
Beyond that, he said, I'll see you tomorrow.
Beyond that, though, well, I'm going to reveal it then. I mean, he basically said they're in control. The people, the beings.
He
in
knew
control.
that, and I've said that essentially.
Well,
You know,
how did he phrase it?
You know, well, I will go back to my interview with Bob Bigelow, and I'm banging on the table, and this was years ago when I still got frustrated and expressed my, vented my spleen, as it were. And I'm sitting with Bigelow. I bought him lunch, by the way. Now, I'm one of the few people who can say I took a billionaire to lunch. Anyhow, Bob, if you're watching this, you remember our interview, our talk. I'm banging the table because I was so frustrated and aggravated. And Bigelow said, calm down, Bob, calm down. He says, everybody has an agenda. And I said, yes, that's one of the things I'm angry about. Everybody's got their own damned agenda. And he says, Bob, there's only one agenda. Only one agenda. And I says, what is that? He says, it's their agenda. Always has been, is, and will always be until we grow up. Now, Bigelow shared that with me. Wendell shared that with me. He said he'd learned that, there's only one agenda. They're not only merely in control, they've been in control from the beginning. And they are controlling disclosure.
Okay,
and they are deciding whether the masses are ready or not.
And who is they?
Sweetheart, there is indeed a galactic federation. You may think that's a joke. You may think that's a little funny thing from the Star Trek series and all that. There is indeed a galactic federation. And the headquarters is not even in our galaxy. Now you put that in your pipe and smoke it. That there is a federation of advanced intelligence in beings throughout the universe, and the latest figure, 200 billion planets in our galaxy, 200 billion galaxies in the universe. It's probably much, much more. But there is a federation, there is a control, there is a purpose, there is an agenda, and the survival of this species on this tiny zoological garden is important to them. And they are in control of disclosure. They could end it tomorrow if they chose. They'll end it when they have determined that the masses on the planet are ready, and not one instant before will a disclosure literally, in a big way, take place. Now, as I pointed out to you also, it's been my experience, and I've had first-hand experience with this. I've never spoken at a conference in the last 10, 15 years where there wasn't at least one or two of them in the audience. And like Ingo Swann, I've developed the ability to spot them. And I've even had them come up to me. And I think I shared this with you on that interview, where they come up to me after a presentation, shook my hand, and told me how much they appreciated what I had to say. And I've learned that they attend these conferences not to listen to what the speakers have to say, but they're monitoring the response of the audience to what the speakers have to say.
Sure.
Because they're monitoring of us, their evaluation of our condition is incredibly powerful. There are a bunch of outstanding experts in that group. And as I said, they've been with us since the beginning of time, literally. They created us initially. They genetically manipulated us. They plucked those golden apples and turned us into what we are. Now that process is still underway. Those golden apples are still being manipulated, and we're learning to do that ourselves.
Right.
But I will say to you again, the psychic shock of learning all of this all at once would be like Billy Doo. People would, and I've run into them too, honey, and they don't want to know the truth. There's a gut feeling in many people, knowing spiritually, I think, that the truth is more than they can handle at this moment.
You see, what I heard Bob saying yesterday, he didn't say that, listen, the movement towards disclosure is something that is ill-considered and unwise, and people have got to be kept in the dark forever. I think Bob was saying that it can't be done in a way that some people are thinking, with reference to Obama calling a press conference and say, okay guys, we've got this little secret, so listen up and we've got something exciting to tell you. Well, he's not going to do it that way, and Bob was explaining that it's been happening for quite a while.
It has to be a gradual process.
An ongoing strategic process in which people are waking up in waves. And the ripple effect is actually supporting the disclosure movement, and we're part of it, and other people are part of it, and Bob's part of it.
Exactly.
And I think all Bob was saying was that it's not happening in the way that some people naively think. Is that?
That's exactly what I was trying to say.
They're not going to be Billy Doob.
They are the ones with the agenda.
But actually, I actually want to challenge that. Okay?
Well, challenge away, kid.
Because, no, it's an interesting concept, and it actually could be debated. In other words, what's the level of free will of this humanity? Because at certain stages in its development, this may be true. They are in control and have been in control.
And Wendell knew that before he died.
Right. And it depends who we're talking about, they. But I would submit that this humanity that is waking up is about to take those reins into their own hands.
They're waking up.
And that is exactly what some of those groups are very afraid of.
Some of them?
Yes.
Well, perhaps.
Because
there are groups
multidimensional beings.
Carrie, there are people out there, intelligences out there that don't like us very much at all.
Exactly.
Like the two scientists who shared this with my retired commander from the Navy. He was a fusion specialist. What is it? The other element, the other level of reality? I forget. I'm having one of those senior moments. You will forgive me.
You're talking about free energy. Are you talking?
Yeah, well, yeah. He was talking about. He'd worked alongside of a couple of those guys from along.
Cold fusion. Cold fusion.
Well, it's a form of that, yeah. But before he retired, and he was leaving the laboratory just outside of Las Vegas, which he didn't want to be specific about, and I concluded he was talking about S4. He'd worked alongside of a couple of them for some time. And as he was leaving, he said, "Tell me what you really think of humankind." And the one chap said to him, "Well, since you asked." And these guys had worked side by side for a few years. "Since you asked, we consider humankind primitive, savage, and dangerous animals." And the scientist said, "I can't disagree with that, because I look upon the masses of humanity as primitive, savage, and dangerous animals myself." And that's when the other one injected a little bit of humor into the conversation and says, "You also smell bad. You stink." And the commander says, "You know, I took my shower this morning," and he's trying to, and they said, no, it's something about your human nature. It could be part of your diet. It could be the way you think. He says we call it kind of like an auric stench. We find it very discomforting. But nothing, no personal criticism here. And the commander says, "Well, I appreciate you being candid with me. Thank you." And he went into retirement, and he speaks out very carefully. But
okay, but so at this point, Bill asked you a question. They said, what would happen to you if you were to reveal some things that I'm not sure who you think is deciding it's okay, it's not okay. But what do you think would happen to you at this point? Because I've got some people telling me that now there's levels of controllers. And when you talk about Galactic Federation, you talk about the Guardian Alliance, or whatever you want to call them, those are a certain level. Then we have the ones that are actually here on the planet who are doing things like knocking people off because they do reveal truth. Okay? And
well,
they may
those
be
guys are not
pushed
doing
by
that
those
very
people.
much. Most of it, knocking people off are some of our black shadow government
Exactly.
people.
So I'm asking you, if right here and now you know what you can say and you know the limits of that, I'm sure.
I can say almost anything now.
Okay, great.
Because I don't worry about it anymore. And frankly, I don't care what our shadow government thinks about it. I know this, that I've gotten some good friends in high places, not merely up there, but back in Langley and a few other places. You know.
Absolutely.
I became a nuisance, then I became a threat, and then I ended up, I'm an asset.
An asset, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I've been encouraged, my health, you know, I'm still being looked after, I'm still being invited, and I joked with, I think you maybe, about, I don't travel anymore, cabin class. I had a bad experience coming back from Barcelona. And, you know, I'm not a snob, but I'm sitting in this big jet in the middle section. And bless her heart, there was an enormously overweight lady on my right who kept falling out of the seat. There was a squalling brat on my left. And here I am. I can't stand in line to wait to pee anymore, you see, because of my age and a couple of little infirmities that I have. And I said, look, I'm not going to travel cabin class anymore. Guys, if you can't buy me a business class ticket, I'm not coming. Well, good God, I thought that would be the end of that. No more trips. I was shocked.
Oh, yeah.
They're buying business class tickets for me all the time. The guys in Madrid bought me one, you know?
Right. Absolutely.
And the guys in Pennsylvania, which I will, if I'm still here, will be speaking out in October, bought me a business class ticket.
And well, they should. So six days you disappeared. You came back 5 minutes
No,
later.
I was gone 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Okay. So
And they
us-
brought me back 5 minutes after they took me. Now, there are people out there who are watching this who think that I'm totally insane. And I don't care. Because I went through that period also, you know. I've shared with you, I went through 3 stages. I began to think I'm losing my mind. That was stage 1. Stage 2 was I became convinced I had lost my mind. Now I'm in stage 3. I'm sane, and the rest of the world is nuts. And whether you guys like it or not, that's where I am today, and I'm comfortable there.
In support of you, Bob, there's a guy called Michael Ralph who published a book called The Mars Records. Have you heard his story?
I've heard the name, I think, but
Okay.
I'm not familiar with it.
In a nutshell, Michael Ralph, who worked, I believe, for the US Navy, recovered memories that showed that back in the 1970s, he had been taken to Mars on a tour of duty that lasted over 20 years. And when that tour of duty was completed, then he too was returned back to his original timeline the moment after he left it.
Doesn't
with his
surprise me a
with his
bit.
memory wiped.
Now, you can't get mainstream establishment scientists to listen to that without saying poppycock, balderdash, can't be. It's like Stanton Friedman says, they say it can't be, so it isn't.
But we're not trying to talk to the mainstream scientists here. We're probably
They're the worst.
we're probably talking to the 12-year-old kids who say, yeah, that sounds pretty cool and it sounds real to me.
Well, your 12-year-old kids are more broad-minded than some of our establishment scientists.
And they will be establishment scientists later.
Well, someday.
And well, that's because they haven't been through our educational system.
That's right. Their minds have not been stunted.
Been programmed
Yeah.
for a number of years.
It's been very clear to us for quite a while that we're primarily talking to the future establishment.
Of course you are.
Not the present establishment.
You're talking to people of tomorrow.
We're talking to the kids. And the kids are our future. And if we can wake them up, point them in the right direction, and inoculate them against what they're being told by their teachers, then that helps the ball roll a
I
little
agree.
bit faster.
Okay, so but tell us about your experience disappearing for 6
6
months?
weeks? 6 weeks. It shocked the hell out of me.
Where'd you go?
I don't know. I don't know whether I was on their home planet or whether they'd taken me through a doorway, a portal, into another dimension.
Okay.
I heard the name Milena mentioned as to where we were. Now, this interview where I say that I was with them for 6 weeks. They brought me back 5 minutes after they took me. But I remembered 6 weeks. Are we on camera?
We're on camera.
All right, well, look, people said, what did you eat? And I said, I asked for bacon and eggs. I had steaks. I had pork chops. Just about anything I wanted, I got. I went to the bathroom. You know, my physical functions continued for 6 weeks. I literally lived 6 weeks with them. and you ask me where, and I can't tell you where, the name Melina came up, and I don't know whether that was a city, because it appeared to be a city of some kind, a community. There were libraries, there were audience halls, lecture halls. God, the libraries, you wouldn't believe.
Was it a very advanced society?
Oh my God. No, I asked about this. I never saw a fire department, a fire truck. I never saw a cop. I got the impression there was no such thing as a police department. And the people that I was introduced to, people I got to see in 6 weeks, were very human. Look, you know, just like we do. But there was something about them that was totally different. They had an air of peacefulness. They had an air of incredible knowledge.
What did you do during that time? Why did they take you?
Asked questions and was shown things. As I said, the things that impressed me the most were the libraries, the records. You would call them akashic records, I guess. I was told that in this one facility that every event in the history of the universe was there to be retrieved at will, if you wish. You could bring download literally ancient Greece, the pyramids, the ancient Sumer, the first Anunnaki visit to planet Earth 200,000 years ago. It was all there. The life of every human that had ever lived on this planet was all there in that library. Now, can you imagine the computer technology that would allow that where you can retrieve it at a poke of a button, and there it is. You get a wide screen, you can literally almost relive it. The history of the human race was there.
So you had the experience that Billy Doo had?
I was shocked. Bill, I damn near died. It was not what they were sharing with me and what they were showing me. It was the shock of coming back. Now, it's very close to when people have a near-death experience and they go over and they look around and they see the reality that they're literally a part of, that they were part of before they incarnated here. They'll be a part of it when they depart from here. But when you see that, I don't think most of the people I've talked to who've experimented with near-death experiences, very few people want to come back. Some people have begged to stay there.
Yep.
Now, the shock is coming back and comparing what I had seen with what I've got here.
Yep.
Now, I've got a body that's beginning to fall apart on me. It's not a lot of fun. It's painful. I look around and I see the heartbreak, you know. Not only do I see the war, I have the grandson who's dying from wounds he received in Iraq. I'm growing older. I'm losing all my old friends. They're going home. Wendell was happy to leave. I won't say that tomorrow night in the ceremony involving him, but he was. He was ready. He told me a year ago, Bob, I'm tired. I want to go home. And he knew where home was. But the shock, the psychic shock that I have experienced, and I told you on that, I spoke yesterday, why I use the story of Billy Doo, because literally it happened to me. The psychic shock of seeing what I saw and being exposed to what I had been exposed to and coming back here. It damn near devastated me.
You're saying recently it devastated you, or are you talking about your original exposure?
The whole thing, honey, has devastated me. I've been through three wars.
It's also enlightened you. You know, it's
oh yeah,
also made
I
you
think
a
that
lot
was the purpose
wiser.
of taking me.
Yes.
Yeah, they shook me up, physically and spiritually.
There's a book called Don't Fear to Kill a Dead Man. That's the title.
Don't what?
Never fear to kill a dead man.
Huh.
You know, humans, before you're awakened, for all intents and purposes,
You're asleep.
you're asleep.
Mm-hmm. Well,
It's
I've been
a form of
asleep.
death.
I've been asleep.
So
You know,
it is
I
a
had
shock to
I've had
wake
3
up.
marriages. I fought in 3 wars. I've had 3 careers, And I jokingly say, make that 4 wars after looking at my second marriage. Anyhow, the shock of coming back and...
What year was this, Bob? What year did it happen?
Oh, God, it was somewhere around... I came out of the... I started speaking publicly in 91. It must have been in the early 2000s, 2002 or 3, somewhere in there.
You mean that's the year when you had this experience you're talking about, where
I was gone for 6
you
weeks.
were gone for 6
Then I find out I was only gone from here for 5 minutes. Now you try to put that in your pipe and smoke it. And when I jokingly told you earlier that, you know, I went through these stages where I thought I was losing my mind, and I convinced myself I had lost my mind. And now I'm at stage 3 where the rest of the world is nuts and I'm the only sane person there is, other than you nice people here. You see.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah, but that somewhere in the
No, I think that we're all in
2003 or
that place.
2004.
You know,
No, we're not all in that place.
Yes,
90% of the world is still in dreamland.
I mean people like us, people that have been through experiences like this. We do tend to look at the rest of the world as if they're crazy, because they appear crazy.
Well, look at the wars. War is insane. A sane person would never go to war.
Exactly.
Well, the 6 weeks I spent with them, and of course, I see them regularly. I really am. They take me aboard ship. I've been on board their ships many, many times. You know, I get an evaluation. I think I get a kind of a healing.
Okay, do you want to describe the beings you're talking about?
Well, aside from the medical guys that look me over and work on me on the ships, which are extremely tall and very thin, they're well over 6 feet. 6'5", maybe 7 feet. Very thin, very trim. They're not emaciated. I mean, they look very healthy. But aside from that, they look human. I've never gotten used to the way they look at you. That really is disturbing. And if you ever encounter one, and you may have, very likely you have, the way they look at you is disconcerting, because they have a way of looking at you deeply into your eyes, and they lock onto your eyes, and they don't break away. Now, we humans don't do this, because we humans have a tradition where we look into each other's eyes, and after a moment or two, it becomes somewhat threatening.
Yep.
You see? So we human tradition is, don't look into someone's eyes because you're a threat.
Okay.
Well, they look into your eyes, and they look
Or
through
unless
you.
you're in love with them.
They look literally like they're reading you. And I found out that that's exactly what they're doing.
Sure.
And every time I've face to face with one and they look into my eyes, I find it kind of an awkward situation. And they don't look away. And you know that they're looking right through you and reading every damn thought you've got. Now that's disconcerting.
But I assume that when they do that, it's in a non-judgmental way.
Oh, they don't judge you. They don't have to judge you. Good God. If there's any judgment involved, we judge ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the other part of it that is so shocking. When you learn to see yourself, not only as others see you, but as they understand and see you, that's one of the things that happens in the death experience. The judgment is there, but God is not judging you. You judge yourself.
Absolutely.
And that's the worst part about it, because every damn experience in your entire life is there in front of you, like a book, or like a movie, like a CinemaScope movie. And you look at yourself, and then you're the worst judge of all, when you look at yourself and say, oh my God. Because in the death experience, and I've been through that hundreds of times, you feel the emotions of every person you've ever been involved with in all of your lives. Every hurt that you've ever given someone else, every insult that you've ever given anyone else. You judge it, you see it, you feel it. You literally feel it, you relive it. Well, visiting with them is almost like a near-death experience. But the psychic shock is coming back and comparing what I saw with them and what I have to see here every day. Little kids on the street that are hungry. People waging war. The people being gunned down in Tripoli by Gaddafi. And I've learned over the years to look around and pay attention. I don't miss very much. I've trained myself. And when you see that and you feel it, and it breaks your heart to see that and to feel that. And then you understand, I think, why I want to go home and where I'm tired. I really am. But I'm going to hang around a little longer because I have been told to.
And you're a guiding light to many people.
I had one of the best compliments I've ever received yesterday. A young man came up to me and he says, "You know, you're a bridge builder." And I says, that was the origin of the old word pontiff. You know, with the Pope?
Yes.
The pontiff, the bridge builder.
Sure.
People don't know that. Many people, even most Catholics don't know that pontiff means builder of bridge, builder of bridges. And that was a compliment, and I gave him a hug, and I thanked him for that. Because that told me that, yeah, maybe I've been accomplishing a few things.
Maybe you've done more than you think.
Well, if you say so, but I'm holding on to enough ego to live. Because you can't survive on this planet without a little bit of ego. But I don't think I have any vanity left.
Well, for every person who comes up to you in person to give you a compliment, there are 1,000 or 10,000 who don't, and who feel the same thing and they never communicate to you. This is what we've discovered.
Thanks to you two guys. As I said, you turned me into a damn celebrity, and I didn't want to be.
All we did was take a camera and point it at you. And the rest is history, as they say.
Some of the vegetarians who are watching this, perhaps, will say, shame on him. Bacon and eggs, ham, pork chops, and all that. It's been my life, for God's sake, you know. Well, they fed me bacon and eggs, ham, pork chops, steak, anything I wanted. And people have said, when I've shared this with a few, were you perhaps eating vegetarian and didn't know it? Maybe they made you think you were eating steak. And I said, well, maybe they did, but it sure as hell tasted good. Tasted like a good T-bone to me. And the bacon and eggs were superb. Well, what did they eat? Well, I'll be frank with you, I don't know. I never watched them eat. They never ate in front of me. But they sure as hell looked healthy. So not any of them had missed many meals.
Did this experience only happen once, Bob?
That experience, being gone 6 weeks and taken there wherever I was, as I told you, I didn't know whether I was in a city, on another planet, or wherever. Maybe I slipped through a portal into another dimension.
Okay, Bob.
That happened once. But I've been aboard their ships many times, and I've met many of them face to face, almost regularly. Now, I get into an altered state in the middle of the night. I've been doing a lot of remote viewing. And I can put myself in an altered state, like Ingo Swann, Joe McMoneagle. And I go out. But sometimes, when I'm in that altered state, they come in. And I've chided them for this, and other people who've had this experience will agree and understand what I'm saying. I've chided them with this. They pour information into my head that's like Niagara Falls. I mean, it comes pouring in, and I'm almost unable to deal with the volume of it. But I've asked for that, so I can't complain about it. But it
Information about what, Bob?
Everything. Life, death, infinity, tomorrow. Yesterday I told you in an interview that I've come to a point where I really can't tell the difference between yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Because with my recall of past lives, that is as vivid as living again.
Sure.
And here I am at this moment in time, in this place, going through this. And then I've seen the future.
What have you seen in the future, Bob?
Well, the thing that keeps me hopeful and positive is that I've seen a gorgeous future. I've seen a beautiful future for the human race. I've seen a future for this species like I saw at Melina for 6 weeks, of what it can be.
Could you describe that for the people watching this video for whom a positive vision would be so valuable for them to join you in?
Well, I try to say it, Bill. I try to say it repeatedly when I'm at a conference. That you're in for difficult times. That's what living on planet Earth is all about. It's a tough school. And I've said to people, and many people understand exactly what I'm saying, when you're going to school on planet Earth, you're in one of the toughest schools in the universe. And if you get a certificate from planet Earth, hey, I have a silver certificate. They showed me on Melina that I have a silver certificate. One day outside the lecture hall, took me to the library, and there was a table with scrolls all over the table. And they picked one up and said, "This is yours." And it was wrapped in a silver binder. And I intuitively said, "But I want one of gold," being an ornery cuss as I am. And they said, "Not yet. This is you've earned this." I gathered that I matriculated enough to have a silver certificate, but I haven't got the gold one yet. Now, when you get the gold one, you graduate.
Right.
Well, that was a few years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe you're working on your gold one at this time.
Well,
What's the future, Bob, that you would like to leave people with, to envisage as being a real possibility for all of us to share?
well, it's difficult, Bill. I mean, I try to put it into words, because so much of my conversations with them has been talk about subliminal. It's been a psychic exchange where they show me and share things with me where words are never needed. I think you understand what I'm saying here.
I understand what you're saying.
I guess it's a type of telepathy. Because I had seen many times in my visit there that they didn't seem to talk to each other verbally very much, but they all seemed to know what each and everyone was doing. They were communicating with each other subliminally. I would leave in closing, just briefly. There is no death. People should not fear death. Now, there are a lot of not very nice ways to die, but there is no end. There's no death. Everyone is a spark of pure divinity, and there is a God. And that is something that I need to stress again and again and again, because I've been asked, am I an atheist? Do I believe in God? And I say, no, I don't believe in God. I know, because I've experienced that. So I would tell people who are troubled, worried, that the next few years are going to be awkward and difficult, but that's what living on Earth is about. But there is a future for the human species. The race is going to make this transition, and at the other end of this, it's going to be glorious. And I tell mothers, I said, your kids or grandkids, the future will be theirs. And then, like I said in Barcelona, which the Spaniards seem to appreciate, your children and grandchildren are going to the stars. And they seem to like to hear that. But it's true. And we are, as a species, as a race, going to go out there and take our rightful place with these other incredible cultures and civilizations. And having seen the future, I'm hopeful. And, I have this good friend from Galilee 2,000 years ago, who was and still is my best friend, who tried to make that point again and again and again. And those of us who were with him at that time were a bunch of nitwits, and we didn't begin to grasp what he was trying to tell us. But he really essentially was telling us what I've just told you. The human race is not a mistake, it's not an accident, and there is a purpose and there is a meaning in life, and there is a future. And don't be afraid. And that's about all I can say.
For me, Bob, that's a fabulous message to end with, and thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Bob.
Do we have anything else?
We have nothing else.
We have
to
nothing
add
else.
To that.
Oh, I know you do.
Love
You
you.
have questions you haven't asked yet.
Well, we're gonna let you go at this point, unless you have something that you haven't said after all this.
There's a hell of a lot I haven't said.
Well,
But, as I
this,
jokingly told
but
you
I
one
give
time.
you a lot of rain,
Well,
believe it or not. Even though
I jokingly
like,
told you one time, and I'm serious. If you get me a good Jack Daniels, I might go on for 2 hours and tell you things that would curl your hair.
Well,
Being a gentle lady as you are, I could share things with you that you wouldn't believe.
well, I'd like you to try.
Let me tell you something else that Yeshua said. He said there are things I could tell you that you could not bear. But he was talking about life on this planet.
Sure.
And as he was getting ready to leave, he said, the prince of this world comes. He has no dominion over me, but I will send a comforter to you until I see you again. And I've often wondered about who the prince of this world was, who didn't have any dominion over him.
Right.
And I have learned since that every planet has a kind of a caretaker, an authority. Every system has a higher authority. And the galaxy is divided into 4 parts, quadrants. And the Galactic Federation headquarters isn't even in our galaxy. Now that's pretty hard stuff to walk away with, you know. You say that to people and they go, well, good. It's something to take home with them and think about that night instead of watching TV.
Okay, but gotta understand that if you're doing any of that, you're watching TV, you're watching movies, you've been on the internet, certainly, then there's all kinds of information of that sort out there now. And I know that you don't spend hours on the internet.
I avoid it like the plague.
So
Let me
I
tell
have
you-
to tell you that information is not a shock whatsoever.
Well, let me tell you something that might shock the hell out of you, and maybe it won't, because you're a pretty bright kid. What if you were to tell the average guy out there that this is a hologram?
That's out there. We know that.
See?
No,
Doesn't
the
bother
average
you.
guy out there.
You prepared
yes.
yourself. What if I told you that what you think you see as a reality is not reality at all, it's an illusion? And then even further, what if I were to infer to you that all of this is part of a program? I know you're familiar with the movie The Matrix.
Sure.
Okay, well, you're pretty close. Shakespeare tried to make it clear, and I always convinced that that guy was one of them. He was a genius. I'm not even sure the guy we think of as Shakespeare was Shakespeare. There's some indications that it was someone else entirely.
That's
Yeah,
right.
but somebody wrote it.
Anyhow, I always like the analogy of the play. You're a player in a play.
That's right.
You come in stage right, you prance about with your toy swords, you make love, you go through all this, you have heartbreaks, misery, feuds, fights. God, all the plays together, bring it together. And then after it's over with, you exit stage left. And the audience out there in the universe calls for author. Well, I happen to know there is an author, and there is a producer, and there is a director. I haven't met the original author yet, but I know of him. But we're all living a play.
Yes, but we're also co-creators of that play.
Oh, when you're in the middle of the stage, and you know, you're following the script as it were, but you're, what's the word?
Improvising.
Improvising, adding your own words.
Ad-libbing.
Ad-libbing, yes. You're doing a lot of ad-libbing, and the degree of your ad-lib depends on how many lifetimes you may have lived. But we're in a play, kid. This interview is just a tiny chapter in a much larger play.
Is there any other little pieces of information that, you know, because that's where the wider you open the door for people, the more they are able to go through the door and carry on from here. It's like passing a baton. So you can pass the baton anytime.
I'm not quite ready yet to pass the baton.
All right. But
And I'm going to
there's
tell you
steps.
that there are things I probably could share with you, which I have not. And I'm going to save one or two of those for maybe another interview.
Okay. I mean, fair enough. We're not going anywhere. We're gonna be here for you anytime you ask. Right here, today, tonight, there are people going on that stage.
Just before we
telling
came
lies.
here, you saw in a classic example of, what is it? Obfuscation?
Obfuscation.
An elderly gentleman, a
Terrible.
retired military officer, tap dancing all over the damn place.
Exactly.
Yes. And he didn't fool anybody.
No. So that's
Least
what I'm
of all-
saying. Right the scales. Throw out some truth.
I did.
Yes, you did, but you don't.
Life is everlasting. Life is infinite.
No, not the philosophical.
You're an immortal
kind.
being. Well, those are the only things that really interest me anymore.
I know. I hear you.
Now, I know what you're looking
I
for.
don't
You're
have
looking
any
for the
Jack
down and
Daniels
dirty
reference,
stuff about politics, the military-industrial group, the shadow government, the next major catastrophe.
Well, I wasn't going to ask you to predict the future. That I wasn't going to do.
Well, I already did. The future is
Yes.
bright, but there's some
Absolutely. The
bumpy.
very long
There's a
range,
bumpy
that's
road
very safe.
between now and
I hear
then.
you. All right. Are we done?
What I would like to say, Bob, is that this is good enough for me. And let me shake your hand a second time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
I look forward to the next one.
She's never quite finished, is she?
No.
She's never quite finished.
Well, I love her dearly. I've adopted her, sort
And
of.
so do I.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Bob.
Sweetheart, it's my pleasure.
You take care, and we'll come and share some Jack Daniels and talk to you off camera.
Is it permissible
badger
for me
you
to
some
sip
more.
Jack Daniels on camera?
Sure.
Well, okay, we'll do it next time.
All right. Watch out, because I'm going to hold you.
Closer I get to departure, I might share a couple of things
Okay. Well,
with
you have my number.
We're rolling.
Okay. Well,
Is that-
I'm just not going to let you
this-
get away with murder. That's okay. Oh, Bob.
Oh, I would never think of that at all.
Yeah, why? It's
I'm a-
just that, you're kind of a wily old guy.
Go ahead, use the word you were thinking of.
Yes, a wily old.
Look, I've been called so many names. People have to get in line to insult me anymore because it doesn't bother me.